Welcome to this video on learning disabilities and educational neuroscience. I am Dr. Naraginthya Amareswaran Reddy, and in this 90-minute session, we will explore the intersection of brain science, policy, and inclusive classroom practices for our diverse learners. For decades, students who struggled were often unfairly labeled as lazy or not bright. Educational neuroscience shifts this perspective, revealing that many learning difficulties are actually neurobiological differences in how a brain processes language, numbers, and symbols. Understanding this allows us to better support all students. Our roadmap covers 8 key areas: the global and Indian context, the policy mandates, an understanding of learning disabilities, and the bridge between neuroscience and the classroom. We will also look at inclusive practices, technology integration, and practical strategies for your institution. By the end of this session, you will be able to explain the neurobiological basis of these disabilities, identify relevant policy mandates, distinguish science from myths, and apply universal design for learning principles, ICT tools, and actionable strategies in your own teaching. In this first part, we are setting the scene to understand just how common and, at times, how invisible learning disabilities truly are in our educational landscape. Data shows that learning disabilities are common. 5 to 17% of children worldwide show signs of dyslexia, and 3 to 6% experience dyscalculia. In India, 21 disabilities are now legally recognized, highlighting the significant scale of the issue we must address. These are often invisible disabilities. Students frequently have average or above average intelligence, and there are no visible markers. By adulthood, many students use complex compensation strategies, which can mask the underlying struggle until they manifest as anxiety or disengagement. Moving to Part 2, we examine the global and national policy mandate. It is crucial to understand that inclusive education is a firm legal and international commitment. The UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which India ratified in 2007, mandates an inclusive system at all levels. It clarifies that simply placing students in a classroom without necessary adaptations is not true inclusion, a commitment also reflected in the UN Sustainable Development Goals. The National Education Policy 2020 reinforces this as a foundational pillar. It sets specific strategies for students with special needs and ensures that inclusive pedagogy becomes a required component of all teacher education programs in India. NEP 2020 promises several critical changes: early screening rather than waiting for failure, flexible competency-based curricula, the integration of assistive technology, and ensuring barrier-free access to education across all levels. The Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act of 2016 was a landmark expansion. It replaced the 1995 Act, increased recognized disabilities from 7 to 21, and provided a clear legal definition of inclusive education as one unified system with appropriately adapted teaching. The law defines specific learning disabilities as a group of conditions involving deficits in processing language or mathematical calculations. This category encompasses conditions like dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, and others, which we must identify early. Section 16 of the RPWD Act mandates that every institution must provide non-discriminatory admission, physical accessibility, reasonable accommodations for individual needs, and ensure that staff are trained to support the academic and social development of every student. Higher education institutions must be aware of key requirements under the Act: a 5% reservation of seats for benchmark disabilities, defining benchmark disabilities as those with at least a 40% degree, and the recommendation for regular annual screenings. This slide brings together the global and national commitments we have discussed. It shows the journey from UN and SDG mandates through India's NEP 2020 and the RPWD Act, directly to your classroom where policy becomes daily practice. We are now moving into our third section, understanding learning disabilities. We will define what these conditions are, how common they are, and how they specifically manifest in the higher education environment. Crucially, a learning disability is neurobiological in origin, not a reflection of intelligence or effort. It is specific, affecting particular domains, and while lifelong, it is highly manageable with the right identification and instructional strategies. Every teacher should recognize these 4 primary conditions: dyslexia, which impacts word decoding; dyscalculia, affecting numerical sense; dysgraphia, concerning written expression; and dyspraxia, which involves motor coordination challenges. These conditions rarely exist in isolation. We see high levels of comorbidity between dyslexia and dyscalculia, as they share overlapping neural networks in the brain, which reinforces the need for integrated support strategies. In higher education, we often encounter students who have got this far by developing masking strategies. Academic pressures like heavy reading loads or timed exams often expose these hidden difficulties for the first time, leading to mislabeling. Let us clear up some common myths. A learning disability is not a result of low intelligence, vision problems, or a lack of effort. It is a brain-based difference that requires specific, evidence-based methods, not just trying harder. Welcome to Part 4. This is the heart of our talk, where we look at educational neuroscience. It serves as the vital bridge connecting cognitive science, psychology, and effective classroom pedagogy. Educational neuroscience asks a key translational question. What does our understanding of the learning brain tell us about how to better teach and support our students? It is about evidence-based refinement of our teaching assumptions. The core idea here is neuroplasticity, the brain's remarkable capacity to reorganize itself through experience. This is the most important concept that neuroscience offers educators, as it provides the biological basis for improvement through intervention. Looking inside the reading brain, dyslexia is characterized by atypical activation in phonological and visual word recognition networks. Crucially, brain imaging suggests this is a difference in circuitry, not damage, and it can be trained. Recent meta-analyses of fMRI studies confirm this. We can see functional brain differences linked to dyslexia, and critically, we can measure how these activation patterns shift after targeted, structured interventions. Regarding the numerical brain, dyscalculia is linked to the intraparietal sulcus, a core hub for processing quantity. When this region is underactivated, it affects foundational mathematical sense, but again, this can be addressed through specialized training. There is strong evidence for hope. Research has shown that after structured training, children with dyscalculia demonstrated increased activation in those very brain regions that were previously underactive, proving that intervention changes function. Because dyslexia and dyscalculia often share neural ground, understanding their co-occurrence is vital. A student struggling with both may require an integrated, rather than a fragmented, intervention plan to effectively support their learning journey. Educational neuroscience also carries a cautionary side. Research reveals that neuromyths, misconceptions about how the brain works, are surprisingly common, even among trained educators. For instance, a 2022 study found that 84% of surveyed teachers still believe in the, quote, learning styles myth, despite a lack of evidence supporting its efficacy. We must identify these myths to avoid them. Common misconceptions include the idea that we only use 10% of our brain, that learners are strictly left or right-brained, that we must match teaching to a specific learning style, or that there are rigid critical periods after which learning becomes impossible. Why do these myths persist, even when we have the facts? Often, they feel intuitively true or align with good teaching instincts, like the importance of varying instruction, because facts alone don't provide immunity. We must practice habitual skepticism and demand evidence before adopting any new brain-based educational claims or products. To close this section, let us visualize the translational chain. It starts with fundamental neuroscience, progresses through cognitive psychology to develop principles, informs specific pedagogy, and ultimately reaches the student. This is the path to truly evidence-based practice in our lecture halls.